Howdy, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hope everything is going well wherever in the world you are as you're watching this. Thank you for tuning in. This is Myles Dyer Live. This is my weekly live show I've decided to start doing. Firstly, because I've missed doing live shows. Something I remember starting about 15 years ago in the good old days of stickam.com. And it's always nice to see people from the Stickam era popping in from time to time and saying hello. And then also the fact that I just feel this energy to get back into making content online. During the pandemic, I had to obviously put a hold on my podcast show, which was done in a studio, and now I'm able to do it from home. I've done one episode already with my great friend Ana Ibero from Brazil, who is an amazing virtual reality developer. Definitely check out that episode if you haven't already. And I've got lots of awesome guests lined up. Had a flurry of responses this week from a variety of people I've reached out to from all different backgrounds in society with the work that they do. So I'm very looking forward to getting them nailed down in the diary. And I think at the moment it's looking like one episode a month, which is what I always wanted it to be originally. But as I start reaching out to more and more people, hopefully it can become a bi-weekly one, or with good about that. Just a bit more housekeeping. With this live stream every week, it is just a very casual conversation for us to chat. If you post anything in the comments, I can bring it up on screen in front of me so everyone can see it. But, you know, I am trying to think of topics. Last week, I thought it was actually a really decent episode around dealing with anxiety. And we covered a lot of ground, and including some unrelated but funny stuff. The fact that I was entered into a PlayStation VR game, which was funny to say the least. I still need to post that video clip up as a separate video on my Instagram sometime, but it's just been a very, very busy week. Mainly involving me trying to stay cool in this heat wave, and also just dealing with the ongoing health issues that I've been dealing with. I've had my blood tests, I've had my ECG, and for those of you that don't know, basically the last 3 weeks I've been having a lot of tightness of the chest and heart palpitations, and so I'm just getting it checked out. But as I worry about it, obviously that can lead to those exact symptoms I'm trying to alleviate. So it's been a very difficult time for me there, but I'm getting through it. But yeah, I am planning on having topics each week, and so today it felt right to talk about what is on the minds of a lot of people all over the world, which is the climate crisis. I put the UK heatwave just because that's what I'm in right now. You can probably see the shine on my head because it is very hot right now, and I've got studio lights on. And a fan, which hopefully you won't be able to hear too much. Here in the UK, having air conditioning isn't really a standard luxury, and by the time you ever decide to buy one, it's usually when the prices are put right up due to the heat. So and I'm totally broke at the moment anyway, so maybe next year. But yeah, today we're going to talk about sort of the heat waves, hearing about how things are in your parts of the world, but also looking at the climate crisis and what can be done about it, because it is a very daunting thing. You hear this term called climate anxiety, which is a widely experienced phenomenon, which is the idea that when you really face up to the magnitude of the crisis that we're in, it is kind of terrifying. But there is a lot of reasons to have hope. But with hope does not come complacency, and I think that's where we really have to focus about where we put our energy. So I'm definitely going to be talking about that. But then throughout this, it's also about Q&As. So if you have any questions at any point, just put them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them. I've just had here, I used to watch you on Stickam. I remember seeing you when you went to Texas. I hope everything is well with you. I miss Texas so much, and I'm sure it's pretty hot out there at the moment as well. But yeah, thank you for stopping by. So with that said, let's get on with this, I think. And if you are watching, you don't have to engage in the chat, but just a quick hello. It's always nice to see who's there. So, the weather at the moment. Here in the UK, we are around 30 degrees centigrade, which I'm going to do the translation now because I know in America you do Fahrenheit. So it's been around 86. It's been around 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot for the UK. But it's been that since Monday, and the Met Office here that gives forecasts on weather in the long term really has stated that we can expect a heat wave in August as well. These are going to become more normal, but then when you look elsewhere in the world, there is much more troubling things going on. You may have seen the news about Germany. There's been mass flooding there in Germany. And even yesterday, there has been huge flooding in China. I believe they've had 5 months of rain in just one day. And there was horrid scenes of people on the underground, in the subway, with water up to their shoulders. I'm going to get some footage up in a minute, actually. It's been about the same temperature here in New York. See, in the city, it's not good. I mean, I'm not in the city, so I've been able to go out a bit, but every morning is a bit of a dichotomy of, do I open the blinds and open the window to let some fresh air? Oh no, that's let all the hot air in. Bad move. So actually today's been the coolest it's been for me, and that's just because as soon as I woke up, I kept all the blinds closed. I've now got it all open now, actually. There's a window behind this computer screen, and so I've got the window open there. And I've got the fan to help some circulation, because a lot of people forget that when you buy a fan and people are like, oh, it's not really cooling me down. Fans don't cool the air, they just blow it around. And yeah, air conditioning would be nice. But yeah, let's try this actually, because I've been trying to work out how to do screen share. So you can see all my calculations here. Great. So does it let me actually remove? Okay, here we go. If I go to my Twitter, and then we've got some video. I mean, here we've had giant hail in the UK, which isn't good. Obviously, you've got horrible scenes coming from the States. This was in Klamath County, which is in Oregon. This was in China. Absolutely decimated with flooding. And then look at this. This is in the Actually, okay, it does let me go full screen. That is the subway. Absolutely incredible. And then if I actually go down a bit more, look, this is This is in a subway.
打电话给俺311，叫俺311报警。现在已经到哥伦布那个建房。
I mean, it is just horrifying.
打电话给俺311。
And this is in the Hainan province. This is a bit longer footage. And you can see the water's higher outside. I can't even begin to imagine. Yeah, it's worrying. It's worrying to say the least. And then we've got even other environmental disasters. So here in Florida, in Tampa Bay, it's the red tide.
Insane.
Look at the other side.
Millions of fish floating in the canals. This is all dead fish.
Sheesh. Imagine spending all that.
And millions of gallons of wastewater have spilled from a fertilizer plant, and red tide is feeding on phosphorus and nitrogen. Wildlife is dying en masse. Here we go, more footage of
现在车厢量好几百人等待紧急救援，等待紧急救援。
absolutely remarkable. And you know, I put all this on screen. Obviously, it's kind of concerning, but it's also, you know, it's happening now. And the issue that's always been with climate change, other than climate change itself, is the fact that human beings, we have the ability of foresight. And I think we can be pretty good at using it on our own. And hey, Yod, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you too. You know, people are good at using foresight as individuals, and I think when you're in groups, in companies and stuff, you can use foresight to, you know, have a strategy for the long term. But when it comes to things that we've not really experienced as a society before, that becomes increasingly difficult. And the concern with climate change is the crisis is here now, and we are not able to revert what is currently going on. We can only stop it from getting worse. And so for every year we stall is another year that we allow things to get worse many years down the line, because there is this lag time. And there are lots of runaway effects as well, which are really scary. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that people don't really consider. So, for example, there's areas of the Amazon rainforest, which is known as, you know, the lungs of the earth. With all the trees and that, they absorb a lot of the carbon dioxide in from our atmosphere. Unfortunately, there's areas in the Amazon that are now producing more carbon than they are offsetting. Let me find this. Here we go. I haven't got a button for screen share, so I'm having to double click stuff. So climate change, Amazon regions emit more carbon than they absorb. Significant parts of the world's largest tropical forest have started to emit more CO2 than they absorb. The southeast is worst affected, says scientists, with higher rates of tree loss and increasing number of fires. Temperatures there have risen by 3 times the global average during the hottest months. Areas of our planet that absorb more carbon from the atmosphere, for example, in the form of greenhouse gas CO2 than they store, are known as sinks. The role played by lands and forests of the earth is soaking up carbon has been a critical factor in preventing faster rates of climate change. Since the 1960s, these sinks have taken in around 25% of carbon emissions from the use of fossil fuels. The Amazon, home of the world's largest tropical forest, has played a key role in absorbing and storing much of that carbon. But the growing impacts of climate change and deforestation are taking their toll on this crucial CO2 sponge. So earlier this year, a study showed that the rainforest in Brazil released about 20% more CO2 into the atmosphere than it took in over the period from 2010 to 2019. It's pretty concerning. And I appreciate some people might have come on here, especially after last week. It was like to alleviate anxiety. This is probably stuff that will increase it. But the thing is, this is the world that we live in, and we need to face up to it. And the best way we can face up to it is having conversations like this, because it means, you know, after the live stream, you can go away, you can have conversations with people, and that is how you change global consciousness. It is about one-to-one conversations with others, because it has a knock-on effect, and it can change conversations at the dinner table. It can have a knock-on effect with how things go up in particular industries, whether it's small things about, you know, reducing the amount of plastic that's used by the commercial sector, or retail, should I say. But it can also impact, you know, there might be people that work in the media and therefore tailor the messaging in the media to get people thinking about the environment more. But there are a lot of unintended consequences that people don't often think about. So one, I'll start with something a bit more light-hearted. It's not light-hearted, but it's more than what I'm about to get to. Russia's permafrost is thawing super quick. Let me find this. my spelling is absolutely abysmal. Russia, Perma. Here we go. This must be it. So there are currently 187 forest fires burning across Siberia. Look at that. But in a separate story, they've been able to find mammoth fossils that they haven't found before because of the permafrost melting. But the thing I was going to mention was a lot of people don't realise is in the most northern parts of the planet, there is permafrost. There is deep, deep areas of ice that has not melted or been exposed to the atmosphere in millions of years. And within that ice are organisms, bacteria, that we would not have an immunity to. Alien life, you know, but on our own planet. And so that is one aspect of what happens when the permafrost melts. Another part is there are pockets of methane under areas of the ice. And the worry is that when that ice melts and it starts releasing the methane into the atmosphere, you then get runaway global warming, which is where the Earth will warm so quickly that we see weather chaos unlike anything we've seen before, and it creates a feedback loop. And you know, we were talking about you know, the rainforest and how it can you know, it is a sink, it absorbs CO2. The other part about it, I'm just seeing what's happening here actually. Canadian here, wildfire smoke has been covering the entire country, thousands of fires burning, but hey, let's build another oil pipeline. This is the concern, is there'll be people that go, but we need oil to keep society going. And, you know, I will concede that is the case. But you need to transition. We need to use this oil to transition, because otherwise if we leave it too late. And this just unfortunately goes back to things I was talking about on my channel 10 years ago, which is, you know, if the Titanic is sinking, you want to, as soon as possible, get people to the life rafts, because if you leave it until the last minute, everyone scrambles at the same time. There's not enough time or life rafts, and then more people die. And unfortunately, that is the situation we're in, is where if we just allow things to be last minute, then it becomes problematic. But the thing I was going to mention about the sinks in the Amazon is, yes, it is a great way of absorbing CO2, but the oceans absorb so much heat from our atmosphere that it is basically acting like a heat sponge. And when it cannot absorb any more heat, we are in serious trouble. And again, it'll be something that's too late. And speaking about what I was mentioning about viruses that have not been seen in millions of years, buried in the permafrost, exactly. So I could definitely go into lots more examples, but you know, it's important that we put this in perspective. There is still so much that we can do, and there was a really young kid that was cleaning plastic from the ocean. He designed something from he was like 13 or something, and it's called the Ocean Cleanup, and it's the largest cleanup in history, and I absolutely love it. And it's basically, it just catches any plastic in the ocean. And look at this, these massive barriers that go out there. Now, it's going to take a long time to do, but it's already at work, and it was started from a teenager. He's now in his 20s. every year, millions of tons of plastic enter the ocean, of which the majority spills out from rivers. A portion of this plastic travels to ocean garbage patches, getting caught in a vortex of circulating currents. If no action is taken, the plastic will increasingly impact our ecosystems, health and economies. So they aim to clean up 90% of floating ocean plastic pollution. Now, this doesn't cater for all the plastic that's, in the water, but if we can do that... Here we go, here's the image. This one on the left. Look at the size of that. It's an experimental system, but it's been worked on. So, it's amazing. So, there is great stuff that is happening in the world at the moment. I recently spoke with a former colleague of mine who worked at The Guardian. He was very senior there, and he left just before I did. And he's just taken a year off to basically research the ways that journalists can better report on climate change. Because there's actually a lot that's been learned from COVID. And that is because news generally is, full of opinion pieces. They said this, they said that. Whereas now it's more about what is the day-to-day data telling us? What is the science telling us? The science changes as we get more data in and the situation changes. And these are challenges, but these are opportunities to really fix the way that we report things and educate people about what's going on. In the UK, we used to have a daily death and infection rate of COVID. I think we should be having a daily briefing or number about the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. I think that's fine. Well, at least it's kind of convenient that the stuff winds up in localized vortexes in the ocean. Yeah, I guess so. And it's good that they're focusing on that most. They know where it's going to be and it will end up there. But, it's all about the stuff that's on the shorelines and that. What's very, very frustrating is governments. I can speak for our government. I don't know how it is in everyone else's part of the world. But our government will boast about how we've reduced emissions. But it never includes stuff like freight. I think it doesn't include air travel. And it doesn't take into consideration the fact that we may have sent to other countries, for example, rubbish disposal to other countries. So no, it's no longer our problem. We don't have to count it. It's on them. We live on one planet. You pollute the air here and it goes to another country. Okay, that's not our problem, but it is adding to a crisis that we're all going to have to face. So that's definitely an issue. I also am wary about, all the denial that tends to happen with these situations. People want to just feel that, this can't be an issue. We should be able to live our lives how they've always been. And that was definitely the case with COVID. People that were just like, I don't want to get vaccinated. I don't want to wear a mask. I just want to go out and, not worry about it. Why let COVID stop my life? And unfortunately, I think because of the many freedoms we have gained in many countries over the last century, it means we've become very sheltered from the harsh realities that nature is way more powerful and we need to respect the dance that has to take place with nature. We are not separate from it. We are a part of it. We are nature. And I really hope that the human ego can be mitigated when dealing with climate change, because with COVID it's clearly still an issue. I don't know how many of you saw the Jeff Bezos space rocket that launched with a very questionable shape. Is it going to load? But I believe it used 300,000 times the amount of carbon that one person would use on a passenger flight. Here we go. And there's something called the Overture. What's it called? astronauts. Let's have a look here. What is it called? I thought it was called something. Sorry, it's not overture. It's the overview effect. This is amazing. This is from 2019. Something profound happens when astronauts see Earth from space for the first time. When astronauts saw Earth from afar for the first time, they described a cognitive shift in awareness after seeing the planet hanging in the void. It's been 50 years since Apollo 11 missions took 3 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, to the moon and back. Aldrin called it a brilliant jewel in the black velvet sky. This state of mental clarity, called the overview effect, occurs when you are flung so far away from Earth that you become totally overwhelmed and awed by the fragility and unity of life on our blue globe. It's the uncanny sense of understanding the big picture and of feeling connected to and yet bigger than the intricate processes bubbling on Earth. I'm not going to read any more on it at the moment, but there are lots of videos on the overview effect. But Jeff Bezos had mentioned it before he went up. And actually going back a week ago when Virgin, what's it called? Virgin, I can't remember what the full company was, but Richard Branson, when he went up and he came down and he started speaking, he started rambling. And he was like, we're just one small planet. And he was like, sorry, I've got a lot processing in my mind. And it's because even people that have been very superior in their industries going up there will be changed, and I have hope that Richard Branson having that experience will... Sorry, Virgin Galactic. Thank you, Cerebral. Thank you for that. Isn't the rocket powered by hydrogen and oxygen fuel? I will have to check that. I'm pretty sure I read, because it shouldn't be producing... Yeah. I'll have to look at that in a moment. But yeah, so Richard Branson, that was one thing. And then Jeff Bezos mentioned it. And then when he came down, he spoke about something that I thought was very interesting. Now, by the way, I'm not a fan of Jeff Bezos. You know, pays barely any taxes like he should be. And, you know, very questionable practices with the way that his staff are treated at Amazon. But with that said... when he came back, he was talking about that the mission for him is to take industry into space. So he says that Earth basically becomes a residential area. So Earth is where we live, but in space is where industry takes place. Anything that creates pollution is done off of our planet because we need to protect this. I found it very interesting. Obviously, I'm of the belief that we can get to clean, renewable energy. We can totally offset carbon with implementation of technologies that we need to invest in yesterday, to be quite frank. Because the thing is that, you know, billionaires might think, oh, if this is a sinking ship that we're on the planet, we need to get off here. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. I just think it's really interesting that we're living in this cyberpunk dystopia. All the billionaires are trying to leave the planet. Well, this is it. This is it. It is. Here's a Life Science article. Okay, I can't see it at the moment, but let's have a look. Blue Origin fuel. So it's fairly clean compared to other launch vehicles. So what I mentioned was rockets, generally. So not this one. So I'm glad you pulled me up on that correction. How much pollution is Jeff Bezos going to generate to his trip? It turns out when it comes to addressing greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, Blue Origin's new Shepard rocket should be among the cleanest launch vehicles around, though climate change concerns from suborbital spacecraft could increase as similar flights take off in the near future. Um, so in 2018, the airline industry accounted for 2.4% of global emissions. But it says, but while ice and clouds can reflect sunlight back into space and reduce global heat, water vapor is a more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, and the longer that vapor remains in the atmosphere, the greater it will heat our planet. Interesting. Okay, this is interesting. We're all having a lesson here. Here we go. See, I told you, more people come again and again. Martin, welcome. Where you been, bro? I haven't seen you on YouTube in ages. So yeah, I've started doing these weekly shows every Wednesday. So yeah, be sure to ring the bell. So I do them the same time every Wednesday. Talk about different topics. I think this is the 4th one I've done, and every week there are subscribers of mine from the past who've stopped by and go, "Hey, I didn't know you still did this." So I realise I just need to keep doing this, and then hopefully by the end of the year I will have connected with many of you. So yeah, no, you're still subbed. I appreciate that, man. I just meant ringing the bell, and then it will definitely make sure you're notified. So yeah, I do that, and then I also do the podcast show, Quest for Empathy. That's just come back, but I've built this home studio. So yeah, but in terms of where I'm available, Instagram is where it's at. Myles Dyer Official. That is the main place that I'm at. You remember the Tesco horse video, right? For people that don't know this, and I'm happy to like switch to a bit of light-hearted stuff. I'm trying to think. Look here. Oh god, I found it already. Just search horse meat scandal. You see this? Horse refused Tesco burger. This was me. So there was a scandal in the UK that Tesco, the supermarket, its burgers had horse meat in it, reportedly. So they had to recall a load. So the night that the scandal came out, I went to Tesco's and just as a horse in a suit, as you do. There was one guy that it was like a classic moment of undercover. See, people that don't know how I used to be on YouTube, I used to do a lot more comedy and stuff like this, asking, where are their burgers? But there's this guy that comes and he literally covers the camera and he says, "If you show my face, I'll kill you." He basically said he was from the military. But it's great. There we go. It's just like classic. Oh, the fun we used to have. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Pretty ridiculous indeed. Has that gone to... No, it's still Safari. That's cool. Cool, I was just checking. I'm just getting used to using this screen share because I've not been very good at using it in the past. But anyway, so yeah, today we've been talking about the heat wave. It's definitely cooling a lot now. I'm definitely going to enjoy going outside for a bit, I think, after this live show. But when it comes to climate change, the things we can do, it is about just constantly keeping the conversations going. It's about sharing stuff online, but it's also engaging people that are skeptical. And one of the biggest bits of skepticism, I did a video many years ago called "Are Our Governments Failing Us?", which I'm sure my libertarian friends would love. Well, yeah, of course they are. Government's shit and never works. But the video was basically talking about how there are a lot of really important issues where governments kick the can down the road because they don't want to deal with the long-term issues. They want to go for short-term gains, which is making it a political issue to win but not to solve, because then it's something that you can use on the next election and then the next election. And so an example I give here in the UK is immigration. Immigration is a huge issue in terms of mainstream political discourse in the UK. It was definitely a contributing factor to the Brexit vote. And what I've always talked about when it comes to immigration is when you look at the research, people that immigrate to this country are net contributors to the economy. They pay in taxes, national insurance, they contribute more to the economy than what they take from it. But the problem is, as populations grow and we have more immigration and they're making this net contribution, governments are not taking the money that's made from this and reinvesting it in public services, especially in areas of the country which are heavily impacted by immigration. And so what you do is you get people saying immigration is bad because, waiting lists are going up and for the health service, and public services are struggling. There's not enough schools. All these sort of things, like totally fine concerns to have, but the investment isn't there. And so I believe our Labour government had a suggestion which never came to fruition. It was called like the Immigration Impact Fund, and it was the idea that a percentage of revenue that is made from those who've immigrated that are paying tax and that is like ring fenced, and that is used to invest in public services to work with the growing population. But that wasn't put in place. And so if you've got people that are seeing immigration happening and yet their lives are getting worse, that becomes an issue. And so the reality for them is that immigration is bad. Now, that's a very simplistic way of going over it. There are, of course, lots of different people that have lots of different issues going on. But I'm just using that as a starting point, because with climate change, it's very similar. You get a lot of people that say climate change, it's just a con to raise taxes. So some people go, no, it's not. Climate change is real. And others will go, yeah, climate change isn't real. It's a complete con. I'm not someone who says we can take down the middle, but what I do say is there is agreement that can be made across both lines, and it is this. Yes, governments have used climate change as a con to raise taxes whilst not using the money that they raise to reinvest in developing new technologies, creating a green economy. They still subsidise fossil fuel and other terrible industries for the environment. And so actually we shouldn't shut down people that have those concerns, but instead say, no, that is a right concern, but that doesn't take away from the fact it's real. It's just that our governments aren't taking it seriously. And you'll hear arguments like, well, if climate change was real, wouldn't they be taking it more seriously by now? Well, yeah, they should be. But unfortunately, we have governments, again in the UK, that are driven by ideology, and unfortunately the ideology is getting hit up against natural law, the science of the world that we live in. I often talk about the phrase late stage capitalism. And this is another great example. I'm going to go to your comments in a minute, by the way. Vegematic just gave a very, very kind super chat. Thank you so much. And I love the descriptions they give. Pear character rolling on the floor laughing. And that was after remembering the old videos. I really, really appreciate that. Hey, Mikey, it's good to see you here. Thanks for stopping by. And thanks everyone else for stopping by. It's been quite a downbeat episode today, I'm afraid, just because it is about climate change. But I felt it has been needed to be said. But where was I? I was talking about kicking the can down the road. And ideology. I talk about late stage capitalism. So straight away, once you get into a conversation, you get people being binary again. So you'll get people that are proper supporters of free market capitalism, and they will go, capitalism has brought more people out of poverty than any other system in history. And people that you'll get some people that are critical of capitalism that won't acknowledge that point. Whereas I'm like, well, no, yeah, that is true. It has brought more people out of poverty than any other system. However, a system is not without flaws. And it's not to say that a system shouldn't exist up until a certain point, until new things can come to fruition through technology. I believe that, if we make it far enough, we are going to be post a monetary system. We are going to have infinite energy through renewable energy sources. It means we won't be having to work like we do now to pay for an oil-based economy. We won't be having to pay to keep the energy bills going. Instead, we'll be generating solar energy and wind energy and geothermal energy from the ground. And that surplus energy we make, we can feed back into the grid, and it creates a network. that energy can power fabricators for producing our food and the energy, the gas, electricity bills, all these things. And we move away from an ownership economy where people, there might be certain things that we still own, but mainly it's about the access to goods and services. And again, I've done lots of videos about this the last 10 years. But then people will throw back and say, oh, this is, communism or socialism and that. And I'm just like, no, I think this is the next stage after capitalism. I think it's post-capitalism. And so already from these variety of examples I've given, whether it was immigration, whether it was climate change, whether it's about how the economy works, you get a lot of people resisting and sticking with, just like you're in one camp or the other. And I'm someone who's like, it's a bit of everything, really. Not equally, but there are bits in everything that can be taken there. I'm just going to your comments, by the way. I think that there is a tendency to forget that just because things are better now than they were in the past doesn't mean we should stop making things better. That's exactly right. There are things that we are going to look back on with just be absolutely horrified by. There's that meme, isn't there, of the African child who is like doing that, and it's saying, you tell me, and then it mocks like, Western developed countries bullshit. So he's saying, you tell me that, let me find it. I think this is a version of it. God, there's lots of different versions of this. Yeah, this is it. You mean to tell me that you flush your toilets with drinkable water? I've seen another version going, you've got so much clean drinking water that you shit in it. It is crazy. And Jacques Fresco, who's a futurist I often speak about, who passed away quite a few years ago now, but he died 101. He met Einstein when he was a kid. He was on the Larry King show in 1974, and even then he designed like toilets that when you flush them, it uses the wastage from the sink, so you're not using clean drinking water. There are a lot of different things that we have in our society which are fucking absurd and, are just unconscionable. But because it's been a part of society, like a lot of social attitudes and that, because it's always been the way things are, we don't question it, we don't challenge it. And so I go back to this cliche metaphor I always use, which is, if you ask a fish, can it see water? A fish can't see water because it's all around it all the time. And that's kind of how we are with our social conditioning. Hi, Myles. Your thoughts on the best way to deal with the migrants crossing the channel, assuming that are making the journey due to climate change, something that is bound to increase in future? Yeah, when people are always talking about, reducing foreign aid and, complaining about the migration crisis now, it's like, you've seen nothing yet. If we keep fucking up the planet, there are literally going to be massive swathes of land that are no longer habitable, and people are going to have to move. I mean, there's already parts of the world that the last 10 years have had like 50 degrees C in India and Pakistan and things like that. Hey Bex, thanks for stopping by. Simple people want simple explanations. Life is incredibly complex and full of variables. Absolutely. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about a former colleague of mine who's working on how research should be done with climate because of the fact that the science does change as data comes in and we learn new stuff. I mean, we're coming up with a malaria vaccine that's only been possible because of the research into COVID. Hey John, good to see you here. Let me actually show you a bit of that article, actually, because it is... yeah, he went to Condé Nast. He's a German author. Let me see if I can find this article. I think he had it pinned. Here it is. He sent me a DM and he says there's reasons to be hopeful, because I'm trying to get him on my podcast at some point, but he's just doing a lot of research at the moment. Let me show you some of this, guys. And again, if you got any questions or comments, just add it. We're not going to solve all the world's problems today, but talking about it is good. And who knows what next week's topic's going to be. So, this article, if you're not a climate reporter yet, you will be. COVID-19 coverage offers lessons for reporting on the climate crisis. It's a really, really great article. But one bit I really like about it is this. So, environmental scientist Dana Nusitelli, I probably messed that up, has also identified 5 similar stages in which the outright denial of COVID-19 and the denial of climate science both unfold. His table. So you got the stage of denial, coronavirus and climate change. So stage 1, it's not happening. So Donald Trump, the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. This is their new hoax. And on climate change, it's a hoax. I think the scientists are having a lot of fun. Stage 2, it's not our fault. So Senator John Cornyn. So it's not our fault. China is to blame. This is for COVID. Because the culture where people eat bats and snakes and dogs and things like that, these viruses are transmitted from the animal to the people. Donald Trump on climate change. China does not want to do anything to help climate change. They burn everything you could burn. They couldn't care less. Stage 3, it's not that bad. So Donald Trump's a lot in this. One day, like a miracle, it will disappear. You remember when he said that about the coronavirus? And then climate change, the climate will change back, he says. Stage 4, solutions are too costly. So Donald Trump on coronavirus. We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. And then climate change. I think the climate change is just a very, very expensive form of tax, which I've already touched upon already. And then finally, stage 5, it's too late. Boris Johnson on coronavirus. It is going to spread further, and I must level with you. Many more families are going to lose loved ones before their time. Climate change. The climate apocalypse is coming. To prepare for it, we need to admit that we can't prevent it. And then it talks about metrics. I mean, this is a very, very, very detailed article. And yeah, I highly recommend it. So just to let you know, it's called, if you're not a climate reporter yet, you will be. COVID coverage offers a lesson. And actually, let me just post the link in the chat. Thank you very much. That means a lot, because as someone who's not done this for a long time, I always wondered if I had a knack for this. So that means a lot. It's a good confidence booster for me, because I'm still trying to turn it all around. So yeah, really, really appreciate that. Thank you, Wyatt. And actually, I don't know if any of you have seen my latest Instagram post, but I drew this on a bit of paper and took a picture of it earlier. But just in terms of positivity, I think everyone needs to see this, which is, you are somebody's reason to smile. I absolutely love this. And this is something that everyone should always think about, especially in a pandemic where a lot of us have been, stuck at home by ourselves. We don't see our friends a lot. We only communicate digitally. I was speaking with a great friend yesterday who I hadn't spoken in about a year. One of the most positive souls I ever know. Absolutely amazing human being. Her name is Effie Ezekiel, who you may have seen on my podcast show, Quest for Global Empathy. She was in the second episode. And she was saying that she's found it very challenging and trying to feel upbeat. And I was like, trust me, I may not always respond to what she posts, but I was like, you blow me away and you put a smile on my face. And it meant a lot to her. And it goes back to what I talk about every week, which is about vitamin G, vitamin gratitude. That if there's someone that's done something good for you, could be a small business, could be a family member, a friend, or someone that you just follow online, drop them a message and just let them know how they made you feel and the positivity they brought into your life. Because we often do it when we wait until they're in a bad place, or sometimes we miss the opportunity. We should always be doing it in the moment. When people are doing well, that's the time to keep telling them, keep doing it. So I just wanted to say that at the back of those kind words, and appreciate that, Martin. Thank you, good sir. So we've got 10 minutes left, so I'm happy just to open this to Q&As. We've talked a lot about climate change. Unfortunately, we've not covered it all because it's a big issue. And I appreciate that Shu Andrew was asking what's the best way to deal with the migration crisis. It is about investing abroad, and also investing in renewable energy and technologies. If we do that, it will boost our industries, and then it's stuff that we can export to the rest of the world, which would be great. And it's interesting because you hear about the manufacturing industries being absolutely decimated in the US and in the UK, and it's seen as the old time was to work in the factories, and that we're now moving towards service industries and technology. But I think there's a real case to be made that manufacturing could actually be a huge industry again because of the need to update our infrastructure, not just of roads and bridges, the cliches, but also of energy systems. We need to replace everyone's boilers with green ones. We need to replace cars with electrical ones, or a whole new holistic approach on transportation, like a Uber service that is completely run on automated cars, that is free, picks you up, takes you where you want to go, then it goes and picks up the next person. It's on a network, so it knows where the traffic is, and it's able to take a route that is safe and quickest for the passenger. There's so much that can be done there, and I think that could lead for a really exciting future. But we're so bogged down here in the UK with Brexit, and then it was with COVID. But unfortunately, climate change. I don't know if you've seen the meme with the shark. Let's have a look here. Just put meme at the end of any search, and then it usually finds what I'm after. Here we are. Yeah. It's this. COVID-19, the upcoming economic crisis, and then climate change at the bottom. Brace yourself. Top comment, hey, no spoilers for the rest of the year. Oh man, I love the internet. How do you feel COVID will affect the West 10 years from now? I mean, it's really difficult, man. Like 10 years. Because 10 years ago, I was just focused totally on global revolution in terms of people protesting more and climate change. But I don't know, honestly, COVID, I don't know, because COVID could have been a thing that came and went if governments were more, used more common sense and just shut it down, like what they did in New Zealand. As soon as it came into the country, they were like, who's got it? Right, you're quarantining. Who have you been around? Okay, all you people, you're quarantining. Now who have you been around? And they did it with like 5 or 6 stages out. And that was how they totally eliminated it. In our country, they just dilly-dallied and went, yeah, it's here, but it's not much of a problem, yeah, because it hasn't spread yet. And just look at it now; it's just ravaged through the economy. So the reason it's hard to judge is it's not just like the trajectory of nature; it's also about human approach. And to be honest, a lot of the older generation in government need to be replaced by younger, more imaginative minds. But unfortunately, imagination is usually quashed and just called communist and stuff like that, because it's all about maintaining the established order, which is currently a cancer on the planet, in my opinion. With regards to foreign aid, I do get the benefits of it, but it's quite hard to justify to the general public when there are so many unemployed here and the NHS needs more money in UK investment. So a point I made earlier about that point was that people that you're talking about foreign aid. It is hard to justify, but I would love to see a balance sheet of where the money goes. Look into war and subsidising all these things. If we could have a massive sheet and look at where money is, the stuff that is needed for foreign aid is actually an investment. And I know that you're not saying this. You're saying about it being justified. Until we have a government that invests in ways that people can feel and see the benefits around them, you then start looking around you and pointing at, right, who is it that we got to get at next? That's just it. I worry that we've reached a tipping point with regards to climate. We need to deep adaptation at this point. Yeah, basically, we need we need drastic change in the next year or two, or it's game over. There was a really, really tragic report. Let me find it. What's it called? The ICCP? No, it's the IPCC, is it? The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? Yeah, report. There's one that's coming out next year. Here we go. So basically, scientists increasingly concerned about the thresholds beyond which recovery may become impossible. So it was a leaked report that's meant to be released February next year. And it is really, really damning. I love this quote. And when I say I love this quote, I don't mean it's nice. It's fucking horrific. But it's a really, really, really good way of explaining it. It says, life on Earth can recover from a drastic climate shift by evolving into new species and creating new ecosystems. ... Humans cannot. And this is the thing. Like, the world that we lived in, we have adapted to over thousands and thousands of years. And if it changes, that's it. We can't just adapt. Oh, here we go. This is all the stuff I mentioned earlier. For instance, as rising temperatures lead to the melting of Arctic permafrost, the unfreezing soil releases methane, a powerful greenhouse gas that can in turn causes more heating. Other tipping points include melting of the polar ice sheets, which once underway may be almost impossible to reverse even if carbon emissions are rapidly reduced, and which would raise sea levels catastrophically over many decades, and the possibility of the Amazon rainforest switching suddenly to savanna, which scientists have said could come quickly and with relatively small temperature rises. It's so scary, man. But the thing is, they say this report's coming out in February, but it's not enough time to then implement any of the changes in that year. According to the AFP, the IPCC draft details at least 12 potential tipping points. The worst is yet to come, affecting our children and grandchildren's lives more than our own. So we've got the tipping points here. Because a tipping point is the domino effect. I mean, look at this stuff, man. Everyone who studies tipping point cascades agrees on two key points. The first is that it is crucial not to become disheartened by the magnitude of the risks. It is still possible to avoid knocking over the dominoes. Second, we should not wait for precise knowledge of exactly where the tipping points lie, which has proved difficult to determine and might not come until it's too late. Again, so the people that's saying, I want absolute proof, that's going to be a barrier to entry. And something that's definitely been the case... let me just bring it full screen again. Something else we have to keep in mind is when it came to like the tobacco industry and how they were discrediting the cancerous effects on cigarettes. When it came to ExxonMobil and all these massive oil companies, their mission was not for people to think that climate change was a hoax. It was to just make people believe the science is still not decided, even though it was like 99.5%. They just want to sow enough doubt, because to fix climate change requires dramatic change, and people wouldn't want dramatic change unless they felt it was absolutely necessary. And how do you stop absolutely necessary thinking? By making people feel that, okay, well, we don't entirely know the full picture yet. So yeah. The justification could be put this way, maybe. If people are happy where they are less likely to migrate. Yeah, unfortunately that is. Right, I've got moths coming in, so I'm going to have to put this down. My standing desk. Callie, good to see you here, my friend. Aw, you've got to go. All right, well, I hope work's going well and we should catch up soon. Okay, but climate change isn't species threatening. It will obviously displace huge amounts of people, surely, but will obviously adapt. At this point, it's inevitable. Well, it might do, but then there's other factors within human civilization. So, for example, nuclear war, the fact that current wars are fought over oil, but future wars will be fought over clean water. There's some pretty, and we see how horrible humans can be when it comes to fighting for resources. So when it becomes absolutely desperate, what do we think is going to happen? But again, technology could really do well. But then again, it's like you have the technology, but there are literally like in the northwest of America, over 50 degrees Celsius, it was melting roads and cables. So what if we get to a point where it's like we have the technology, but the weather is so bad we aren't actually able to implement it? I hate ending on such a downer. But listen, let me just close the window 1 second. Oh, right. So, well, I'm feeling cheerful after this discussion. Texas froze and the power went out. Exactly. There is literally a literal metal pole mark in North Pole. It used to be on a walkable ice sheet. Now it's underwater. I used to work by friends Joseph Glacier, and car park was crushed in a landslide one day. That's incredible. Yeah, there you go. Northwest, and the power went out. So, I'm just going to end on a few pointers, right? So the reason I did this episode was just to get a lot off my mind and to have a discussion, because I miss talking about issues like this, and this is good therapy for me, I guess. Also, it's interesting, even though it's kind of scary, but something I've always said the last decade is the amount of wealth and income inequality is creating a generation that is going to be worse off than the previous generation. I'm a part of that. And so what I've said is, in a weird way, it makes me hopeful, because if you create a generation that is renting, isn't able to buy property, you know, capitalism is about obtaining capital, and all you're seeing is like land barons just doing massive land grabs to then rent out. So if you create a generation of people that have nothing to lose because they don't own anything, then it means they have everything to fight for. And I think that fierceness could lead to a real interesting revolution that we need to make this change happen. And, you know, governments, even if they disagree majorly with policies, they will always say, you know, change comes from the bottom up, whether it's stuff on Brexit or it's stuff like minimum wage pushing. So, you know, green issues are becoming more and more prominent in mainstream discourse, and I am hopeful for that. I love this, Vegematic. Really appreciate it. Yeah, if you're watching, by the way, I just want to say hi, even if you were quiet, love you. But yeah, do hit that like button. It helps me out. And I have to think about what next week's topic's going to be. But, as I mentioned, Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm trying to post every other day on there. And something else I've been working on, I'm going to go to the last few comments in a moment. I'm actually in the middle of working on a guided meditation video. So I'm halfway through scripting it. I tried recording it and learning how to speak calmly close to this without sounding too creepy. I can't hear myself, so it's probably sounded extra creepy. But it's going to be done as an Instagram TV video. But then I'm probably going to upload it to my YouTube channel as well. I did some live guided meditations at the start of the pandemic, and people said ASMR Myles. Yeah. I had some people that said they really got a lot out of it. And I've always been told I have a soothing voice. Not from everyone, but some people. Probably not from people that know me and have to hear it a lot. But yeah, so I definitely want to do that. And so I'm doing this guided meditation, especially because I've been using them a lot the last couple of weeks, because as I said at the start of this live stream, I've had a lot of health issues the last few weeks, heart palpitations and tightness of the chest and shallow breathing, and I'm getting tests at the moment for it. But Sleep is usually my favourite time of the day or night, and I'm not enjoying sleep. I generally go to bed feeling quite scared because I just have all these weird sensations and I can't focus. So I've been using a lot of guided meditation on YouTube, and because it helps me so much, I'm like, I'd like to put it out there. So I will try. So just wrapping this up, aren't you generally positive where humanity is going? There might be quite a few roadblocks in the way, but give it 50 years and the average Bangladeshi will be as rich as the average Dutchman. I mean, yeah, I do think there is going to be an increase in the network of wealth, information, energy, and I think that will democratize the planet. But to get there, we talk about roadblocks. The biggest roadblock is people that are currently benefiting from the current power structure. They aren't going to want to give it up, but they can't hang on to it forever. It's like the rich people that think, oh yeah, if the world goes to shit, we'll just get in our yachts and go out to sea. But you can stay out there, but how long are you going to stay out there for? When are you going to come back in to get some more food? Or are you going to be able to avoid pirates that are going to steal shit from you? Like, people will find you. That's what civilization is about. We are all in this together and we need to act like it. And it goes back to the whole black and white thinking. You got people that are like libertarians who are like, fuck collectivism, it's all about the individual freedom. And you got some people that are like, no, it's all about collectivism, individuality doesn't matter. And I'm like, actually, it's both. I think individual freedom is really important, but our individual freedom benefits from a sense of community, a sense of society. It's like the whole mask debate at the moment. People that don't want to wear a mask, I don't need it, I'm fine. It's like, it's not for you. The reason you wear a mask is to mitigate the chance of passing it on someone else. So why do you need to worry? If other people wear a mask, I'm fine. Well, no, the whole idea in society is that you do things to help others with the hope that they'll do, you know, the golden rule, treat others as you'd like to be treated. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Oh, this is going back to what I said about everything to fight for. Isn't that a similar situation in what happened during the Industrial Revolution in the UK? Folks were basically left with nothing and everything to fight for. Correct. From a silly Canadian. I love Canadians and silly ones at that. Thank you for stopping by, Jesse James. You've always thought I had a good ASMR voice. I mean, I just need to do the tapping. And there's a good friend of mine in the States who's got a massive ASMR channel. I absolutely adore her. And we were going to meet up last year, but then the pandemic hit and that had to be put on hold. So maybe I'll do a ASMR collab with her when that happens. And thank you, Theo. I appreciate it. It's just annoying because I like to just find out it's totally fine. But like even here, I just feel like tense there. And rarely, a couple of times a day, I get a moment where I sort of wince. And because I do that, I'm like, is that me trying to catch my breath or is that me just wincing? Like, you just start asking all these questions. So I'm getting tests, and having conversations like this makes me feel better, because when you keep it all in your head, and I'm still going to do a video about it, brain friction spins round and round and it can burn you out and, you know, turn into much darker thoughts. Whereas speaking about it is good for everyone. So, yeah. Thank you, I really appreciate that. And final question before I end it, because I am running over time. What made you get back into doing this? So the truth is, I got really burnt out with YouTube just before my head injury. So that would have been like 6 years ago. And I've never really been able to bounce back. And it's because, you know, even though it's something I've always enjoyed doing it, I just wasn't getting that pleasure. I used to be able to make videos every day and work ridiculous hours because I loved it. And I think a big misconception about burnout is people think, you know, if you're doing stuff 24/7 that you love, it's fine because you love it. You can still get burnt out doing the things you love. So it's important that you switch off and take care of yourself and play the long game. And I definitely didn't do that. So, yeah, it is what it is. Hello. Good to see you here. And that's great. Yeah, do ring the bell next to the subscribe button so you don't miss this every week. I think this is a good time to do it every week. And then my podcast show, eventually it's going to be on Fridays. But I'm also, there's two other contents I want to do regularly. One is the guided meditation, but I'm probably not going to do them I'm not going to be able to do them weekly. But like, if I do them once a month, if I do a guided meditation once a month, a podcast once a month, and then I want to do my doc watch. that I only did a couple of episodes for, but they did so well, and I'm like, that's a show right there. And it's where I'd watch a documentary and then do a video saying, here are 5 things I learned from it. And it's just for people that want to have a quick top line thing about a podcast. So yeah, I might return to Doc Watch. But to be honest, I need to work out how to film videos, because I could do it on this camera. The quality isn't... It's good for live streaming, but it's not for doing videos. But I'm going to... Well, when it cools down, I'm going to set up my camera behind me looking at the desk and see if I can start filming videos there. I'm trying to think, actually, if I did it... I could do it from the side, or if I put it on the desk here, because what I would do is I'd make the standing desk come up, and then I'd put my camera on this, and then I could have that low to the ground, and hopefully you'd still be able to hear me quite well. So yeah, I need to work this out. There's a lot that, but again, I'm getting back into it, but one step at a time. And for me, with social media and that, Instagram is the one platform that I use a lot more than others, usually for stories, but I'm trying to do posts on it as well. So an hour later every week would be nice, so I don't have to get up at 5:30 a.m. to catch it. It'd be tight though, because in 50 minutes time it's a PlayStation virtual reality show that I help with their Instagram and stuff, so I need a bit of a break in between. So yeah, I'm sorry, Bex, but you can always watch it on replay, but I appreciate it's not the same as watching it live. So yeah, before I sign off, guys, please do click that like button if you haven't already. And I just want to say that I really, really appreciate you sticking around. Every week I do this, I'm always really nervous, thinking, is it just going to be a few people? But it always picks up, and I just really, really appreciate it. I'm still working a lot behind the scenes on the podcast. As I said at the start, I've got a lot of guests that are going to be coming on, and I'm just getting stuff in the diary for that. But yeah, Instagram is the way to be. So on that note, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you all stay safe. I hope you're treating yourselves good, because you're all awesome, and that you're able to support your friends and family around you through these continually difficult times. And unfortunately, we do have to have uncomfortable conversations about the threats that are in the world, because we can't run away from nature. But if we're all engaged with it, then we have a real chance of achieving global consciousness and a global sense of responsibility that we can use to mitigate things getting worse. And that's when humans are at their best. So yeah, much love, everyone. Have a good one, and see you next Wednesday.